There's something you should know before you go in there.
That patient has fired 12 therapists.
You'd be number 13. Aisha stopped. Just for a second.
Then she smiled quiet to herself, thinking that if he'd done it 12 times already, he had to be running low on steam by now.
2 knocks. No answer. She opened the door anyway. The room was dark. Every blind pulled down, every light off. By the window, a man sat with his back to her in a wheelchair. Broad shoulders, straight spine, but his legs lay still beneath a blanket, like they'd been asleep for a long time.
Get out.
Low voice.
Cold.
Final. Aisha didn't get out.
Instead, she walked further into the room and reached for the blinds.
Seoul afternoon light poured in like it had been waiting. The man turned. Kang Heir, 35 years old, only son of Kang Construction, one of Korea's largest conglomerates. Diagnosed with lower body paralysis 11 months ago after a car accident. His eyes moved over her, top to bottom, slow. Then the corner of his mouth curled up like he'd just heard a bad joke. What did they ship in from America?
I said get out.
Aisha set her bag down. She pulled a chair directly in front of him and sat. She looked him straight in the eye.
Not challenging him, just not flinching.
Can you even see me when you look at me? He blinked. That was not the response he expected. Aisha kept going.
Because I can see you.
A man sitting alone in a dark room with his back turned to the whole world.
I've worked with people exactly like you.
And I'm not leaving.
Heir's eyes narrowed. 12 therapists, and every single one had crumbled on the first word.
Apologised.
Teared up.
Quietly closed the door behind them.
This woman pulled her chair closer.
Where'd you get your licence?
The United States.
I'm also certified through Korea's Ministry of Health and Welfare. Would you like to see the paperwork? Don't bother. You'll be gone inside a week anyway.
Aisha opened her notebook.
Then we've got a week. Let's start today. Which shoulder's been giving you more trouble, left or right?
He didn't answer.
But he didn't throw her out either. Aisha decided that was enough for day one. After she left and the door clicked shut behind her,
Heir sat for a long time, staring at the chair she'd been sitting in. 12 therapists.
Not one of them had ever pulled it that close. Out in the hallway, Park Mi-kyung was waiting with her eyes wide open. He didn't fire you?
Aisha smiled.
I'll be back tomorrow. By the third morning, Aisha noticed the blinds were slightly higher than the day before. Not much.
Maybe an inch.
She didn't say anything about it. Calling attention to it would have been the wrong move, and she knew it. Heir was already sitting by the window when she arrived, same as always.
Your right shoulder is sitting about an inch lower than your left.
It's locked up. That's where we start today.
Heir kept his eyes on the window.
Do whatever you want.
The moment Aisha's hands made contact with his shoulder, his entire body went rigid.
It had been 11 months since anyone had touched him, really touched him, with intention. After the accident, he'd made it clear, don't come near him. But Aisha's hands were different. They didn't demand anything. They asked.
Tell me if it hurts too much.
He said nothing.
Aisha had already learnt that silence from him meant keep going. Near the end of the session, she noticed it.
Leaning against the nightstand, a worn sketchbook thick as a dictionary, its spine cracked and its cover stained with what looked like old coffee rings. The second Aisha's eyes landed on it, Heir's voice cut through the room.
Don't touch that.
I'm not touching it.
I'm looking at it.
Stop looking at it. She looked away, but she couldn't stop thinking about it.
On the 5th day, Heir winced sharply mid-session, a sudden spike of pain in his shoulder. Aisha moved quickly to adjust her position, lost her footing and grabbed his arm to catch herself. The sketchbook slid off the nightstand and hit the floor open. The page it landed on was covered in architectural drawings. Clean, precise curves. A building made almost entirely of glass. Aisha went still. Every line was deliberate. The margins were packed with handwritten notes in Korean, small, urgent. The handwriting of someone who couldn't get the ideas out fast enough. She didn't need to read Korean to understand what she was looking at. This was someone's whole dream, drawn out by hand. Heir snatched it off the floor. But Aisha had already seen it. And she'd seen something else too. The tips of his ears had gone red.
Did you draw those before the accident? Silence.
You studied architecture.
That's got nothing to do with anything. It has everything to do with it.
Aisha's voice stayed even, but there was nothing soft about what she said.
If I'm going to help someone heal, I need to understand what they lost.
Jehar said nothing else. He just held the sketchbook against his chest and didn't let go. That night, back in her small room in the hospital residence, Aisha sat on the edge of her bed and couldn't move for a long time. The drawings kept coming back to her, those lines, the desperation packed into every margin, and the way had gone red when she'd seen them. She felt the tears before she understood why they were there. She'd been trained not to do this. Don't get emotionally involved. Keep your clinical distance. Crying over a patient's story is a failure of professionalism. But the tears didn't care about any of that. Outside, Seoul glittered through the window and blurred. So that's what it looks like, she thought. When someone loses the thing they were made to do, even if these legs won't carry me, I'll find my way to you. A week passed. Jehar didn't fire her. Then another week. Still nothing. Park Mi-kyung started looking at Aisha in the hallway like she was some kind of phenomenon. Every morning Aisha knocked at the same time, and every morning Jehar was already at the window, sitting there like he'd been waiting, though neither one of them would ever say that out loud. Then, 3 days in a row, something shifted. Jehar started talking during sessions, just a little. The first day, it was one word, hurts. The second day, a full sentence, left side's tighter today. The third day, something Aisha didn't see coming at all. You actually eating decent food out here? Or just surviving on whatever? Aisha kept working and answered without missing a beat. The hospital cafeteria has a bibimbap. I get it every day. A pause. That's terrible bibimbap. That Saturday afternoon, Jehar asked to go outside. Park Mi-kyung looked like someone had told her he'd asked to run a marathon. Aisha already had the wheelchair ready and was standing by the elevator before the paperwork was even signed. Han River Park. Late autumn. The kind of afternoon where the sunlight hits the water and just scatters into 1,000 pieces. Aisha pushed the chair along the riverside path, and Jehar didn't say much. But his face was completely different. It was the face of someone feeling wind on their skin for the first time in 11 months. He told her to stop at a spot with a clear view of the river. They sat there together for a while without talking. The wind came off the water and moved through Aisha's hair. Jehar glanced over at her and then back at the river like he hadn't. There's a piece of land across the river. I was going to build something there. Aisha looked across. What kind of building? One that breathes. No dead ends, no blocked views, just open sky wherever you look. He said it quietly, like he was telling a story about someone else. Doesn't matter anymore. Aisha looked at the far bank. It matters. That land's still there. Jehar turned and looked at her. Straight on. For real. For the first time. Aisha didn't look away. The river wind passed between them. Then he turned back and laughed low, under his breath. Not the bitter kind. The kind had clearly forgotten he knew how to do. On the way back, Aisha hit a small crack in the pavement and stumbled. Jehar's hand shot out and caught her wrist before he even thought about it. They both froze. He slowly let go. Even if these legs won't carry me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll find my way to you. Aisha didn't respond. She just started pushing the chair again. Her ears were burning. In the car on the way back, his mother called. Jehar let it ring. 3 times, then nothing. But when the car pulled into the hospital parking garage, a black sedan was already blocking the entrance. The rear door opened. A woman in her early 70s stepped out, posture perfect, dressed in a traditional hanbok. Not a single thing out of place. Oh, Jong-suk. Her eyes found Aisha and locked on. Jehar, is that your therapist? Jehar got out of the car. Yeah, Mum. That's her. Jung-suk looked Aisha over, slowly, head to toe, like she was reading a document. Aisha met her eyes and held them. Jung-suk kept her gaze on her son. Come home tomorrow morning. We need to talk. I'm busy. Something behind Jung-suk's eyes went very still. She didn't push it. She got back in the sedan. The car pulled away and left nothing behind it but cold air. Aisha pressed her lips together. Something had just started. She could feel it. And it wasn't going to be good. As long as you're anywhere near my son, you will never be welcome in this family. Not ever. The next morning, Aisha's badge hadn't even cleared the scanner when she got the call to report to the hospital director's office. Director Lee Jun-hyuk wouldn't look at her when she walked in. There was a single document on his desk, her work visa paperwork. Miss Williams, we've received a notification from the Korea Immigration Service. There appear to be some missing items in your visa application. Aisha's hands went still at her sides. When was this filed? Last night. Walking out of the director's office, Aisha put it all together. Last night. Less than 2 hours after Jong-suk's car had pulled out of the parking garage, she stopped at the window at the end of the hallway. The Seoul sky was sitting low and grey. She took one long breath. Then she went upstairs. Jaeha's session was still on the schedule, and she wasn't skipping it. The second he saw her face, he knew. What happened? Nothing. Let's start with your right arm. He caught her wrist. Nobody looks like that over nothing. Aisha was quiet for a moment. Then she said it straight. There's a problem with my visa. It'll probably get sorted out, but worst case, I may have to leave Korea. Jaeha's face went flat. He didn't say anything, but he didn't let go of her wrist either. Aisha gently pulled her hand back and started the session. Neither of them talked much after that. Outside the window, the wind was picking up hard. That afternoon, Jaeha called his mother. She picked up on the third ring. You did this. Jaeha, honey, I don't know what you think Aisha's visa. Mum. Who else could move the immigration office overnight? A short silence. As long as you're anywhere near my son, you will never be welcome in this family. Not ever. Jong-suk's voice was low and completely steady. When that woman is gone, this all goes away. Listen to me. Jaeha ended the call. That night, Aisha opened her suitcase and started packing. She had legal options. It wasn't completely hopeless. But any fight she picked would stall Jaeha's treatment. Maybe permanently. 12 therapists had already walked out that door. She'd somehow become number 13 who stayed, and the treatment was finally working. She stood there looking at the open suitcase. Everything She'd brought from home, folded in neat stacks. Her phone rang. Park Mi-kyung? Miss Williams, can you come up to 12? Mr. Kang is doing something by himself, and I really don't think I should go in there alone. Aisha ran. Outside room 1201, she could hear it through the door. Ragged breathing. Something scraping against the floor. She eased the door open. Jaeha was on the floor. He'd gotten himself out of the wheelchair and was holding himself up on both hands, arms shaking, sweat dripping off his face. No therapist. Nobody had asked him to do this. He was doing it anyway. He gritted his teeth and held the position one more second. Then his arms gave out and he went down. And before he'd even fully hit the ground, his hands were already reaching for the floor again. Aisha stood in the doorway and couldn't take a single step. The tears came before she could do anything about them. Silent ones. Jaeha didn't know she was there yet. He just kept going. Shaking arms. Soaked forehead. Alone. Standing right there, Aisha made up her mind. She was closing the suitcase. She wasn't leaving. She was going to stay next to this man and fight every legal battle she had to fight. Jaeha looked up. He saw her in the doorway. Their eyes met. He didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. That was enough. My language is broken and my skin is a different colour. But nobody in this world loves your son more than I do. Nobody. The next morning, Aisha was in the hospital lobby before Jong-suk arrived. She'd made the call herself, reached out through Park Mi-kyung to Jong-suk's assistant the night before. I'd like to meet. I have something to say. Jong-suk walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. White coat, pearl necklace, not one hair out of place. She spotted Aisha on the lobby sofa, paused for just a moment, then crossed the room. They sat across from each other at a corner table in the first floor cafe. Jong-suk spoke first. You said you had something to say. Aisha placed both hands flat on the table. Steady? Yes, I do.
Make it quick.
I don't have a lot of time.
Aisha nodded once.
Then she started. My Korean isn't great, and I look nothing like what you probably imagined for your son. I understand why you don't think I belong here, but nobody in this world loves your son more than I do.
Nobody. Jong-suk's expression didn't move, but Aisha wasn't finished. Last night, Jae-ha got himself out of his wheelchair and onto the floor and did his rehab exercises alone. No therapist, no one watching. He fell. And before he hit the ground, he was already reaching back up.
Do you know why he did that? Jong-suk said nothing.
Because he wants to live again.
For the first time since the accident, he actually wants to be here.
The cafe went quiet.
On the table, Jong-suk's hand shifted barely, just a fraction of an inch.
Jong-suk turned slowly toward the window. Morning light came through the glass and lay across her face.
The silence stretched out.
Aisha didn't feel it.
She just waited.
Then Jong-suk said quietly, "When I got to the hospital after the accident, the first thing Jae-ha said to me," she stopped. "He said, 'Mum, I don't want to do anything anymore. I don't want anything.'" Her voice didn't crack, but her jaw tightened. "I've heard that in my head every single day for 11 months. Jong-suk's eyes glistened at the corners. Then a sound came from the cafe entrance. Slow, deliberate, the soft roll of wheelchair wheels on tile. Both women turned at the same time. It was Jae-ha pushing himself in alone, Park Mi-kyung hovering uselessly behind him with her hands half raised, like she wasn't sure whether to help or disappear. He found them at the corner table. He didn't stop. He rolled straight up to the edge and looked at his mother. "Mum." Jae-ha gripped the armrests and began to push himself up. Park Mi-kyung lurched forward. Aisha raised one hand. "Stop." This was his. Jae-ha's arms trembled. His legs shook. He locked his jaw and held on. 1 centimeter. 2. His body came up slowly, unevenly, fighting for every fraction of an inch. He didn't make it all the way up, but he got high enough to look his mother in the eye. "Mum, I want to be here." Jong-suk's tears fell without a sound. She pressed her hand over her mouth. Those were the words she had been waiting 11 months to hear her son say. Jae-ha's strength gave out, and he lowered himself back into the chair. Aisha stepped quietly behind him and stood at his back. Jong-suk looked up at her. It was a long look. The kind that measures something. Aisha held it without flinching. Jong-suk said, "I'll withdraw the visa complaint." Nothing else. But that was everything. 2 months later, 12th floor. The window that faced the Han River. Jae-ha's sketchbook was open on the windowsill. A building that breathed, all open sky and no dead ends. New lines were being added to it now. His hand moved slowly, but it moved with purpose. Aisha sat beside him, watching the river. Across the water, the empty lot caught the last of the evening light and held it. Jae-ha set his pencil down and reached for her hand. She gave it to him. Their fingers came together. Over the Han River, the sky turned the colour of something beginning wide and open and nowhere near done. A message for our viewers. This story is fiction, but the feelings inside it are real, and so are the conversations worth having because of it. On disability and identity. Jae-ha's paralysis changed what his body could do. It didn't change who he was. People living with physical disabilities are whole people, with ambitions, humour, grief, and love. Disability is one part of a person's story, not the whole of it. If someone in your life is navigating a disability, ask them what they need. Don't assume. Listen. On interracial relationships and belonging. Aisha walked into a world that wasn't built with her in mind, and stayed anyway. Not because it was easy, but because the connection was real. Interracial couples in the United States and around the world navigate real social pressure, family resistance, and cultural difference every single day. That work is hard. It's also worth doing. Love that crosses lines other people draw is not a problem to be solved. It's a choice that deserves respect. On grief and the will to live. Jae-ha spent 11 months not wanting anything. That's not weakness.
That's what profound loss can do to a person.
If someone you love has gone quiet inside, has stopped wanting things, stopped making plans that's worth paying attention to, you don't have to fix it. You just have to stay.
Show up at the same time every day.
Pull your chair a little closer. Sometimes that's what brings someone back.
If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out. 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline call.
Or text 988 US Crisis Text Line, text HOME to 741 741.
On mothers and letting go. Oh Jong-suk was not the villain of this story. She was a mother who was terrified and didn't know how to say so. Fear dressed up as control is still fear. If you recognize yourself in her, if you've ever pushed away someone your child loves because you were scared, it's not too late to do what she did. Sit down. Listen. Let love surprise you. A final word. You are allowed to love across every line the world tries to draw.
You are allowed to stay in a dark room with someone until they're ready to let the light in.
You are allowed to reach for the floor again even after you've fallen. That's not a small thing.
That's everything.